I want to start today with a question and not a big philosophical one, a small question, the kind that moves through most of us so quietly we don't even notice that we're asking it. And that is, will they like this? And what I mean by that is, will they like this outfit, this email, this idea I haven't said out loud yet? Will they like this version of me that shows up in the room? It's such a familiar question that it stops feeling like a question at all. It just feels like how we operate, doesn't it? But underneath that question, if you follow it down, there is another question. It's quieter. Will I still belong if I show up as I really am? And that's the one that I want to sit with today. There's a shift happening in the sky right now, and I'm not going to walk you through the mechanics of it because that's not what this is about. What I want to talk about is the feeling underneath it, because I think a lot of you are already living it, whether you know the astrology or not. I know I am. So lately I've been sitting with this feeling that I just can't quite shake. And it feels as though many of us are standing at a threshold. The ways that we've learned to belong no longer fit, but the new way of being ourselves still feels unfamiliar. It's an invitation to stop editing yourself down to what's acceptable and start trusting what's actually true. And I keep coming back to one line while I've been sitting with this. And it's not my line, but it landed in my body like it was. Validation is not the same thing as love. Let me say that again. Validation is not the same thing as love. And what I mean is that so many of us learned very early that being loved meant being accepted. As kids, as students, and in families where love came with conditions nobody ever said out loud. We learned to read the room before we read ourselves. And we got so good at shaping our expression into whatever would be received well that most of us can't actually tell anymore where the shaping ends and the real thing begins. And here's what I want to be really clear about, because this can turn into another form of self-criticism if we're not careful. And that's not what I mean at all. This isn't about you being fake. It's not a character flaw. Your nervous system did exactly what it was built to do. It kept you safe inside a system where belonging depended upon performance. And that's not a weakness. That's just your internal wiring. But internal wiring can be worked with, and that's the whole practice. I also have been thinking about a compass, because most of us go looking for a map, and a map tells us exactly what's going to happen. Tells me what decision is the right one. Tell me this is going to work out. We collect frameworks and podcasts and other people's answers, don't we? Hoping someone has already walked the exact road that we're standing on. But a map only works for a road that someone else has already traveled. And there are parts of your life, the real ones, the ones that actually matter, where no one has walked that road before you. Not your mother, not your best friend, and not the person you follow online who seems to have it all figured out. Nobody. That's the moment a compass becomes more valuable than a map. Because a map tells you where someone else has been, and a compass helps you stay oriented when no one else can tell you where to go. And here's the thing about a compass: it doesn't remove uncertainty, because that's not its job. You only need a compass because you can't see the whole path. If you could see the whole path in front of you, you wouldn't need one, right? The compass works precisely because you're standing somewhere unclear, where the fog hasn't lifted yet. I think that's actually the more honest description of what growth feels like. Not clarity, not orientation, not certainty, direction. So, if a compass doesn't give you the whole map, what does it actually give you? Well, it gives you a needle that keeps pointing toward what's true for you, even when everyone around you is walking a different direction. Even when the version of you that performs well is standing right there, offering the easier path. Offering the easier path. The compass doesn't point toward comfort, and it doesn't point toward approval. It just keeps pointing toward what's actually yours to walk. And here's what I've come to believe after all these years of doing this work with people. You don't build that compass by thinking your way into it. You don't build it by reading one more book or listening to one more podcast or training or hoping this will finally be the thing that finally gives you the answer. You build it the same way you build anything durable in the body. Through repetition, through practice, every time you pause instead of performing, every time you ask, does this feel true? Instead of, will they like this? Every time you come back to yourself after wandering away from yourself, again, and then again after that, that's not failure. That's the whole practice. And maybe that's what every return has already been doing all along. Not making you calmer and not making you better, just quietly recalibrating the compass. The return itself is the recalibration. I hope you get that. And I don't think this season is asking you to become someone new. I actually think it's asking you to stop editing out the person you've already been quietly becoming underneath all that performing. There's a piece of this that I want to name too, because it matters. This isn't a season for doing the work alone in a closed room somewhere. Something in the air right now is pointing toward gathering. Real gathering. Not performing wellness in front of an audience. Not branding your authenticity for other people to consume. But actually showing up as you are in front of people who are also willing to show up as they are. And that's not a small thing. Healing was never meant to happen in isolation. It happens in rooms, actual or virtual, where people stop performing long enough to let each other see what's real. And if there's a wound in you around community, around being fully seen and still being wanted, this is a tender season for that. And a healing one too, if you let it be. So here's what I'll leave you with today. Instead of asking, will they like this? Try asking, does this feel true? Instead of reaching for the map that promises certainty, notice the compass that's already inside of you, the one that's been quietly pointing the whole time, even when you weren't listening. And instead of editing yourself down to what's acceptable, practice the return. Come back to yourself and then come back again. That's not a detour from the real work. It is the real work. So maybe you don't need another map, right? Maybe what you've been searching for isn't more certainty, but the courage to trust the compass that you've been carrying inside of you all along. And perhaps every return that you've ever practiced has simply been teaching you how to read that compass. The door is open, my friend.